multiple sclerosis and bladder issues. You've been told that it's just part of the disease, that it's nerve damage. But if that's the case, then why, when we change our diet, when we go low carb, how is it possible that we can have significant improvements in our bladder function in as little as 1 to 2 weeks? At least 80% or more of people diagnosed with multiple sclerosis have various types of bladder issues, whether it's frequency, maybe we have to go to the bathroom often, it's really stressful trying to find bathrooms, getting out of the house. Maybe we're dealing with recurrent urinary tract infections, maybe having a difficulty time emptying our bladder. And kidney stones. So there's so many different areas that we're dealing with bladder dysfunction when we have MS, but nobody is asking the question, why? Why is this happening? Are we okay to just accept the fact that, well, it's just this mysterious disease where your immune system is attacking your nerve tissue for no apparent reason? Well, the evidence, the science shows something very different, and that's what we're discussing today. If we haven't met before, my name is Pam Bartha. I'm the author of Become a Wellness Champion and the founder of Live Disease Free. I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis over 35 years ago. I believe it's like 37 years ago. As you get older, you just kind of lose track of time. But back then, I was told that they didn't know what caused the disease, there was no cure, and not much has changed since then. I work with people from all over the world that are dealing with multiple sclerosis and other chronic diseases, and a really common problem they are dealing with is bladder dysfunction and kidney issues also. And this can really impact our quality of life. It keeps us homebound. When we do go out, it's so stressful trying to make sure there's a bathroom that we can access and we can access quickly. We might have accidents, we might have leaks. And it just breaks my heart that something as simple as just changing your diet can make such a huge difference. And nobody is talking about this. It's so frustrating. Today, I'm going to give you some pointers of things you can do right now to really start to improve your bladder function. And then if you'd like to completely recover and have working towards recovering of multiple sclerosis, not just the bladder dysfunction, I'll show you how you can do that also. So as I mentioned, it can be overactive bladder, it can be underactive bladder, it can be both alternating, that can happen also. And this really does impact our quality of life. We end up being more of a homebody, and it really takes away from very meaningful times that we can have with our loved ones, with just enjoying our life. And so this can also go into kidney issues where we can have these kidney stones. And there are things called bladder stones too, but it's like a stone condition where we're passing these stones. This is going to help you to really make sense of why you're dealing with all of this. So there really is an explanation for this. The science exists. Unfortunately, most people with MS have never been told this. This science is readily available on the internet for anybody to take a look at. Make sure to type your questions in the question box. I'd love to go to your questions a little later on. And let me know, have you dealt with bladder issues? It's really, really common. I've seen numbers up to 90% of people with MS, not just MS, but it's really common in MS. So what we're given for solutions are things like catheters and Botox and surgery. And this is all going to get worse. Maybe we don't have bladder issues when we're first diagnosed with MS, but as the disease progresses in time, we start with relapsing, remitting. We might have a few good years, and then we start getting these attacks, these flares more often, and we end up having the relapsing, remitting MS turning into progressive multiple sclerosis in over 80% of occasions. So this is a really huge part of disease and also for multiple sclerosis. So if it is truly nerve damage, then diet wouldn't make a difference. You wouldn't be able to just lower your carbs for a week or two and start to notice improvements in your bladder. But the Live Disease-Free diet, that's one of the very first symptom improvements that people report to me, is that it really helps their bladder function. And the sooner you get your carbs down, the sooner you will notice significant improvements with your bladder, where people are getting up maybe instead of 6 times a night, they might get up once or twice a night. And of course, we have to treat what's causing this, and we talk about that in a minute. But that's truly what we have to do is number one, and that doesn't cost us anything. We're just eating healthy, but we're eating certain foods that will decrease the bladder dysfunction. Very, very simple. I have the Live Disease-Free Diet Guidelines. If you would like those, just comment the word diet, and my team will send that to you. So this can happen in 1 to 2 weeks where you start to notice improvements. And again, it can happen faster. It's just how quickly you get your carbs down. So what if the immune system is not attacking our nerve tissue for no reason? What if it's not attacking our nerve tissue? What if there is like a war going on? And what if our immune system is doing the job that it is created and designed to do? It is trying to defend us from an infection. And that's the primary job of the immune system, is to defend us from different types of invaders. And those, we call them parasites, any microbe that lives in our body and causes us harm. But these, let's see here. So what the immune system, it's not attacking the body. And there is a reason why we're dealing with the bladder issues. These are chronic infections that we're not looking for. Our practitioners have never been trained to look for these infections. I'm going to give you a couple of wellness champions. I hear this regularly from our students. Again, one of the very first things we do when they join the Live Disease-Free plan is to start changing their diet. And as they decrease the carbs, this is one student's experience. Just by changing the diet and supporting the body, so not even treating it. I am tripping less. My bladder issues are getting so much better. I used to get up at least 5 to 6 times at night, but now it might be 1 to 2 times per night that he's getting up. The second wellness champion shared, I've been following the Live Disease-Free diet and I started to treat parasites. So sorry, this one did start to treat parasites, but my bladder is better. I no longer have any sense of urgency. For the first time in my life, I'm also having normal bowel movements every day. And I'm consistently sleeping more than 7 hours per night. Spasticity is also improving. So we're just talking about bladder dysfunction and bladder improvements, what we can do to help to recover. But it's not just the bladder that's going to improve when you treat the root cause. All right. We're going to talk about infections, how they are impacting our bladder, but you can see by these wellness champions that they're seeing all kinds of other symptom improvements. So one type of parasite, it causes Chaga disease. So this kind of helps you to understand how like our bladder might still look normal and seem normal, but it's just not working normal. So in this particular parasite, it's a small single-cell protozoa. It's called Chagas disease, Chagas. So if we're infected with this little protist, then it destroys the nerves that control different organs and also the bladder. Our gut and our heart and our gut can also be impacted. But these organs, they look normal, but they're not going to function normally. So it is going to impact the nerves that are running to the bladder. So we end up with bladder dysfunction. And this is scientifically accepted globally. So this is well known in science, and that this parasite can cause bladder dysfunction where the bladder looks normal. Now let's look at specific other organisms that are linked to multiple sclerosis. So Chagas, I haven't talked a lot about this parasite, but it just shows you how this is just one single-celled parasite that can impact how the bladder works, but the bladder still might appear to be healthy. But there are many different types of parasites that I have shared in many of my other talks with you, and you'll see that they're also linked with bladder dysfunction. So the first one, actually, let's talk about diet, for example. This is really huge. So I talked to you already about the Live Disease-Free diet, and if you want the guidelines for that, just type or comment the word diet, and my team will send that to you later. But The ketogenic diet was recommended to treat urinary tract infections before antibiotics ever existed or were created. Isn't that insane? They knew back, and I think that was like the 1940s or 1930s where the antibiotics were introduced. Before that time, they understood the power of low-carb diets to help people that had bladder issues. That is huge. And that's actually how I learned that it was so helpful for people that had bladder issues, is that I do a lot of studying, and I used to go onto forums where it was like groups of people that had a lot of bladder issues, and they all shared on there that a low-carb diet helped them far more than antibiotics did. I'm not saying you shouldn't use antibiotics. If you have an acute bladder infection, yes, you need to have it treated. You want to make sure you don't end up damaging your kidneys. But they found that, like, when they kept getting reoccurrent UTIs, that by going really, really low carb, it made a huge difference in their bladder function. And this was known like before the 1940s. Isn't that insane? There's also a point that when our microbes are out of balance in our gut, and this can kind of help you to understand why you might be susceptible to kidney stones. But when our microbes are out of balance in our gut, then we can have depleted, certain health-promoting microbes can become depleted in our digestive tract. And so there's one, and it's Oxalobacter formigens. So that's a type of health-promoting microbe that it's really important, because if it's absent, then we can end up with urinary oxalate increasing up to 70%. So you may have heard of oxalic acid or oxalates, and how that's really linked with kidney stones. And so this one bacteria, it really helps to make sure that is not happening. Also, they have been linked with low lactobacillus and bifidobacterium. Also, when those two health-promoting microbes are not present enough in the digestive tract, so we're talking about the digestive tract, then they see that there's a higher risk of the formation of these stones. Incredible. I haven't seen that, or maybe I've studied it, but it didn't register until now, because when I'm working with my students, I do understand that some of them might be more linked or more prone to kidney stones. But just to understand that it's the bacteria that's missing in our gut, that's why we're more prone to these kidney stones or a buildup of oxalate. That's really huge. And this is in our digestive tract. The Live Disease-Free diet, it restores this ecosystem. So what we're doing is, like, of course, we're eating a variety of vegetables, so we're not just going to eat a lot of spinach all the time. And the diet decreases food to the bad microbes. It's still providing fiber for the health-promoting microbes. And it's the Live Disease-Free plan where we're actually treating the parasites and we're rebuilding the good microbes so that you decrease the risk of having kidney stones and bladder issues. It's resolved. Let's look at some of the different types of parasites that are linked with multiple sclerosis that I've done lots of talks about. They're also linked with bladder dysfunction. Make sure to type your questions in the Q&A box. Let me know if you deal with bladder issues, what your biggest frustration is with it, how it's impacting your life. And, it's something that we need to share this research so that we can get our practitioners to help us, not just treating E. coli, but to look at other different types of infections that are involved. So Borrelia, which causes Lyme disease, it is the bacteria that causes Lyme disease. It loves the bladder, and it can really become a problem, an infection in the bladder. So here, doctors have reported people with Lyme disease developing either an overactive bladder muscle or the bladder that won't contract at all. Another report, Lyme bacteria found inside the bladder wall when they did a biopsy, showing direct infection of the bladder. And yet other reports describe Lyme infections presenting with sudden urinary retention and also stiffness and weak legs, looking very similar to what we would see in a MS attack. So that is Borrelia, and it is something that is very, very common in people that have MS. It is so common that the Multiple Sclerosis Society on their website has discussed this and said, oh, no, the test findings can look similar, symptoms can be similar, but they're different. And I'm not going to go into the research right now, but I've done lots of talks on that. You can look at the Lyme and MS videos and blog posts that I've done on this, and you'll see that their logic doesn't make sense. So I've also shared at least 100 years of research linking MS to Borrelia, has chronic Lyme infections, always with MS. So, and then if we have these chronic infections, they really like to live in the bladder or move to the bladder. Not only the bladder, but they definitely infect the bladder. Filarial worms. So Dr. Alan McDonald found filarial worms in every MS subject that he tested. He's a pathologist, very well respected. And so filarial worms are also known to damage the kidneys and the urinary tract, causing inflammation of the kidney filters, kind of like milky urine and blockage of lymph drainage into the urinary system. So filarial worms, they get in the central nervous system, but not just the central nervous system. So they can cause damage to the kidneys and to the urinary tract also. They've also been reported to cause a serious kidney condition called membranous nephropathy. There we go. Some of these words are tongue twisters. So again, filarial worms have been documented in 10 out of 10 subjects that Dr. Alan McDonald looked at, and they are also known to cause serious kidney issues and urinary tract issues, damage to the kidneys. We've also talked about toxoplasma, and that's toxoplasmosis, which is a protozoa that is caused, or I should say, we can get that protozoa from different sources, but also from cats. And it is known to it can infect the kidneys, and several studies have linked this infection to abnormal kidney function tests and also chronic kidney disease markers. So unfortunately, it's not just one infection that is going to cause kidney and bladder issues, but it's not an unlimited number. It's definitely something that we can figure out. And maybe you've heard of schistosomiasis, which is the blood fluke, which loves to really impact our bladder wall. So the parasite lays its eggs in the bladder wall, and over time the eggs cause a lot of inflammation, and they can cause thickening and scarring and blockage where the urine is supposed to come out. The blockage can cause urine to back up towards the kidneys, causing serious kidney damage, long-term infection. So this is a really common in the world. Schistosomiasis is a really common infection, and it is the blood fluke, and it will infect the bladder wall. So long-term infection with this parasite has been proven to cause bladder cancer. So flukes and fluke eggs are really linked to a lot of cancers, not just bladder cancer. But today we're talking about the bladder, and we're talking about the kidneys. So the eggs can also lodge higher up in the urinary tract, and that can contribute to scarring and stone formation. So I've listed just a few there. I will create a blog post for you where I'm going to put all of this research on. It's going to be nice and easy to read. We'll take this video. I'll cut off the Q&A. We're going to go to a Q&A here right away. I'll answer any questions you have. Make sure to ask your questions. Put them in the Q&A right now. It'll take a few minutes. So what I'm hoping that you see is that I've spent quite a few weeks, first of all, sharing, let's say, I did one live event on the Lyme infection, Borrelia. That's just one of the co-infections of Lyme disease. That's the spirochete, and I shared 100 years of research, and now I'm showing you how that chronic infection in the body, which is linked to MS, how it can be impacting your bladder. But then I've also talked about a different time talking about the filarial worms that Dr. Alan McDonald found in every MS subject he tested. And now I'm showing you how they can impact your bladder, right? So this is tons and tons of evidence and research that is completely ignored. I shouldn't say anything, but it drives me crazy. I say that every week, basically, but it's true. You don't have to go to a university. You don't have to go to the library. You don't have to spend hours looking. It's all online. It's all open. All this research is available to any researcher, any practitioner that wants to look at it. I have created different PDFs for practitioners that you can share. One is MS is an infectious disease. And I think if you just, I can't remember what the word is, but if you just ask for maybe infection, just type the word infection. I really have to have a list because we've got so many resources, but we'll send that to you too. It's just a one-page PDF with all the hyperlinks to all these different infections that can be linked to your bladder issues. So we suffer for years and years with these bladder issues where we're not sleeping at night. We wake up multiple times throughout the night, so we're not getting a restful sleep, which makes us weaker, which makes these infections more active. Then we're not able to go out and do all the things we love to do because we're worried that we're going to have an accident. We don't know where there's going to be, even wheelchair accessible or even accessible for us to get to a bathroom. It limits our life so much, and it's not necessary. Again, number one, you can just start changing your diet today. It takes a bit of commitment. You got to get over the sugar cravings. You've got to change your diet, but you will start to notice improvements that are more significant than any drug can help you with. There's other things that you can do too. So for example, if you're not dealing with a UTI, again, get help from your doctor if you are. Don't mess around with that because you don't want to damage your kidneys. But if it's just like, urgency and you just get that often, there's things like cranberry capsules, not the juice because it can have sugar in it. There's also UTI drops, and I'm trying to think of what else, cistus tea. Those herbs can be helpful again, but if you really want to recover from MS and from bladder issues, like 100% recover, then what you need to do is you need to treat these parasites systemically. It's very important to treat the parasites systemically. We use parasite drugs and herbs and oxygen type therapies, but we do start with the diet and we support the body. All of that's listed on my masterclass training. If you want to see that, there will be the video link just above or below this video, and you can look at all the steps, go through that video, and you'll see all the steps we take to recover. I forgot to mention or carry on, but there's also bacteria and fungi that are also linked to bladder dysfunction. So researchers have found that in many calcium kidney stones, bacteria are actually in the stone structure. They're within. And also fluke eggs have been in gallstones, and I wonder if they are also in kidney stones also. I never checked that. I will definitely check that for you, and I'll add it to my blog post when I have that done. So the bacteria are not just sitting on the surface of these bladder or the kidney stones, they are inside the stone. And when bacteria, they are protected inside the stone or the biofilms, the antibiotics are not going to pick up they're not going to kill all of the bacteria, especially if they're in biofilms. So that's why we end up with UTIs that keep coming back. And I really believe that maybe they're treating the E. coli, but maybe they're not treating the blood fluke that's causing the schistosomiasis, or maybe we have Borrelia and the antibiotic we're using is not really effective against Borrelia. There's also different types of bacteria that are Proteus, and they change the chemistry of the urine, and they drive the formation of infection-related stones. So these kidney stones, and they call them bladder stones also. And these stones act like a scaffold for ongoing infection, and they can lead to kidney infections and over time kidney damage and that chronic kidney disease. There's also candida. Many of us have had chronic candida infections for years. And so with candida, what it does is it really weakens, especially when we have a higher amount of it, then we end up with a weakened immune system. We can end up with these, they're called candida fungal balls. And In people who have weakened immune system, they are using catheters or they're maybe using immunosuppressive drugs. Like even when we have MS, our immune system is taxed, but especially using immunosuppressive drugs, these candida yeast can grow into clumps, and we call them fungal balls. And that's in the kidney drainage system or urinary tract. And these masses can block urine flow and worsen kidney function if we don't recognize them and if they're not treated. So I have had students that have shared, like they've gone to the bathroom and they passed urine and they're like, oh, there's this white fluffy stuff in the toilet. That can be biofilm or it can be fungal issues, especially when it's cloudy white. With respect to the worms, we have one, I'm going to get permission from that student, but one of our students, her husband, actually, I think there's 2 different times that they took videos where there's a worm moving down their catheter. Like you can actually see it. And they took the worm into a doctor and said, is this a worm? And the doctor said, yeah, that is a worm. So she was literally passing worms, and she has a history of MS too. And she's doing amazing. She was so disabled. She was hunched over to the side, like really hunched over, and then getting ready to treat, following the Live Disease-Free plan. Then she could sit up. Then she could stand up. Then she could stand and do dishes. Then she could start walking, maybe holding somebody's hand a bit. And now she's doing like exercises against the counter and just moving forward. And she was passing worms through her catheter, obviously having a lot of bladder issues. So worms can infect the bladder. I've shared some of them, but they can be visible. So I want you to know there is real hope for you. There is real hope, but like myself, when I was first diagnosed with MS, I chose to take a different path. I, first of all, was introduced to the neurologist, and they told me there's no hope for you. You're going to be completely disabled in time. I was devastated. I thought my life was over. I was 28 years old. I was healthy. I was young. I did lose all vision in my left eye. I had terrible tingling and weakness, and I felt I was a mess. My mom had to take care of me, take care of my kids for a bit until I was stabilized, rested a bit, was on prednisone. But my mother-in-law gave me one book, and that book opened up my eyes to a whole new world that I did not know existed. This was back in 1988. And that was written by a medical doctor who said that all chronic disease was stemming from infections in the body. And when the infections were treated, his patients were recovering. Back in the day, they knew more about candida. They didn't really know about many of the other different types of parasites. The book is called The Yeast Connection by Dr. William Crook, C-R-O-O-K. I wouldn't buy that book. You can probably find it in a library. It's very interesting to see how he was such a leader, such a pioneer. Then I found at least 3 other books written by medical doctors also that were saying the same thing. They were focused more on candida back in the 1980s. Then we started to learn about the Lyme infections, the Borrelia we were talking about today. And then in the last, I'd say 7 or 8 years, through the work of just a few different amazing doctors that are more so in the United States, they started to teach us about the different types of worms and protozoa that are also involved in chronic disease. And all I can tell you is that the students I work with, they are infested with big worms. And so sometimes it's like, I haven't even talked about the larva, but very often the larva of these worms, they move into different parts of the body. Could they impact the kidneys? Could they impact, we're not even looking for them, but I bet they could because they do get in the central nervous system. I've talked a lot about them in the previous weeks that I've shared. But there is so much more recovery that you can have that you ever thought was possible when you treat the root cause. This is going to give you amazing quality of life, being able to do the things you love to do, starting to just open up your world again. You're not homebound, housebound anymore. Lots of people get their driver's license back. They go back to work. They start to take care of their kids, their grandkids. And this is not just for multiple sclerosis. This is for many different types of chronic diseases. They're all infectious diseases. It's all so common sense. So this is not coincidence. This pattern repeats across hundreds of wellness champions. If you want to look at some of their successes, you can go to our website, livediseasefree.com. They're right on the front page there. You can click on and you can watch videos. Take some Kleenex because you'll cry happy tears. You can also go to YouTube, livediseasefree.com. There you'll see a playlist of wellness champions. Some of those students I worked with 10 years ago, they have been living MS free for 10 years now. And just think if you would have found me earlier, that you could have got some of those years back, right? But there's always today. Today is the first day of the rest of your life. You can change things today, but you have to take a different path. And you can start, like if you're a little skeptical, start with the diet and start to see that just in a very short time, you'll be like, she's right, it's working. If your carbs are low enough. And then if you decide, man, I want more, I want my life back, then make sure to watch my masterclass training. If you're ready, book a time to chat with me, and I will welcome you to our wellness champions, and you'll be part of this. I call them the trailblazers, the leaders, and the forward thinkers, because they're doing something in the world that the vast majority of people are not doing. They don't even know. Did any of you believe that your bladder issues were caused by anything more than like E. coli, or did you just think it was MS? If it was just MS, then you would not be able to recover. You wouldn't be able to get your bladder function back, but you can, and many people have shared that. Hello, Holly. Hi, Burke. Yes, we'll get the diet to you for sure. And if you would like to have the notes from like all the research of these different infections that are causing bladder issues to share with your practitioner to start researching that, make sure to type in the word bladder and we will get that to you also. So bladder, comment the word bladder, and we will send you all my notes and the shortened video. So Rosie, wow, that is very interesting. You're very, very welcome. I really hope this helps you. You can start by changing your diet and you will start to notice significant improvements in as little as 1 to 2 weeks if you are consistent. And then if you would like to fully recover, make sure to reach out, watch my masterclass training and reach out, and I'd love to support you. So with that, I'm gonna let you guys go. Have a wonderful week. I will be back next week. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe if you feel this could help other people. If you wanna help us to bring change, that's the only way change is gonna come. Take care, bye-bye for now.